is what's the biggest misconception from business owners going on currently in the digital marketing slash advertising landscape from your professional perspective?
We serve a lot of service businesses together, and a lot of people are looking for the shortcut in AI. The misconception is thinking that the technique or the tool can replace the ingredients. You could have the sharpest knives. So over in this other section here, they have these new AI appliances that basically cook and clean and do everything, because that's what's going on here at CES. But if you don't have high quality steak, high quality vegetables, high quality ingredients, it doesn't matter.
Are most people engaging with the full podcast, or they're engaging with the small clips that you tease out with those big names?
So it's both. So think of it as like you're a Hollywood movie producer. You're going to make the movie. That's what you make first. And then from the movie, you're going to make a trailer, right? With all the scenes of explosions and the big action scenes that happen in the trailer. The trailer is like, 1 minute of all the best scenes to get people to watch the 2-hour movie. But you can't produce the trailer unless you made the movie first.
Do you think that there's a few courses that every business owner should either take themselves or have their team members take?
Yeah, I would first start with personal branding, because personal branding is what other people say about you. It's not what you have to say. It's not your Lamborghinis. It's your reputation. And anyone who's a service-based business, there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people that seemingly do the same thing. So the thing that differentiates you is your reputation and what your customers have to say about you.
Are you looking for actionable insights from the world's most inspiring individuals? The Built by Love podcast is on a mission to transform your life, your business, and your health. Tune in for impactful conversations with people who do business differently. Avoid burnout, acquire freedom, and live life fully on your own terms. With me, your host, Daniel Bussius, alongside my co-host, Richard Varga. Dennis Yu, it is an absolute pleasure and honor to have you as you're coming to us from CES Live as a guest on the Built by Love podcast. So thank you so much for being here, sir.
Yeah, a guest of Samsung and Built by Live, both well-known companies.
Yeah, just one being a little bit bigger than the other in your guys.
Well, look, we're in the middle of Central Hall here, right? This is the middle.
See.
This is where Sony and Ford and Motorola and all these other guys are, and they gave me a booth here, which is awesome.
That's awesome, and that's why we are honored to have you, because I've selfishly had the pleasure of knowing you for almost a decade. I remember one of the first conferences you and I were speaking at, and we were jamming before you went on, was at a Keep conference, formerly Infusionsoft. And I remember thinking, you are really, you're a really smart guy. You're really down to earth. You don't mess around. You deliver high value, and you have high integrity. And and so it's been a pleasure. We probably should have had you on sooner, but it's good that you're on here now, and especially coming from CES Live, which is really cool.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm just a guy, and I love to connect with cool people. Like the fact that we were at InfusionCon, that must have been 12 years ago, 14 years ago. And I remember seeing some of your stuff back in, if I remember, like 1999 or so. So that was like 26 years ago.
Yeah, you're aging me. Shh. All right. Well, I know our listeners. So, Dennis, I'm gonna have you lay the floor down in a couple minutes to really have the listener understand who you are, where you come from. But before we do that, I know they're probably looking for some gold nuggets. And the first one, I think that probably every business owner across the world is probably wondering at some point in time is what's the biggest misconception from business owners going on currently in the digital marketing slash advertising landscape from your professional perspective?
So we serve a lot of service businesses together. And a lot of people are looking for the shortcut in AI, which is just another tool. The misconception is thinking that the technique or the tool can replace the ingredients. You could have the sharpest knives. So over in this other section here, they have these new AI appliances that basically cook and clean and do everything, because that's what's going on here at CES. But if you don't have high quality steak, high quality vegetables, high quality ingredients, it doesn't matter. And ironically, if we know that this is true, that the quality of the ingredients, our reputation, our trust, our relationships, our proof of work is more valuable than all the different AI robots and tools and whatnot, if we realize that, then the logical conclusion is if we can show proof of our relationships and how we take care of customers and how they feel, that's way better than anything that AI could generate, ChatGPT generating thousands of blog posts. Let me show you. So yesterday, I was over at Panasonic's booth and I made a couple posts where I didn't even, here, I'm doing some AI cooking. The AI can look inside your microwave and do cooking and change the temperature and adjust
What?
ingredients and all this stuff. Look at these robots that look like dogs that bark at you and also monitor your kids and teach you languages and like monitoring your health. This one scans your brain, all and tells you it said like, oh, you're tired. You're like, I know, I've not had enough sleep because but for example, I was interviewing the CMO of Samsung, and I also was interviewing Panasonic on their latest TV. These guys are all going back on who's got the world's largest new micro RGB TV. I think Samsung's won that one. Look at this tennis. Look at this tennis player bot. This thing goes back. This, I don't know if you can really tell, but you're playing tennis against this thing. So what matters is the real experiences. So I'm showing you real experiences, right? So there's the thing that takes care of your pet. There's the swimming pool, the motorized little thing that goes into the pool, and like all this crazy stuff. But what's going on here is just raw video, real raw proof of me doing things that I'm doing. Like, look at this robo vacuum cleaner that goes up an 80-degree slant to be able to, or lawnmower, right? And it's super smart, cleans weeds, it charges itself, it knows how to go home. Now, if I look at this, I can see, if I look at the information about it, you can see where it is, what time it was taken, who else is here. That's real proof. So for those of us, anyone watching this podcast, you want to do the exact opposite of what everyone else is doing. So if you can demonstrate real proof, like if me and Daniel hang out and have barbecue, and there's a picture, a quick little video about that, even if it's raw and unedited, that carries more weight than AI generated whatever kind of stuff. So I found in the last year, the more AI there is, the better my raw content performs. And that content with other people on
Mm.
site, the exact opposite of technology and AI. Like you and me cooking meat together is like the most un-AI raw kind of thing that we could do, right? That's what's working well. And I tested that on
Yeah.
YouTube 13 weeks ago with a brand new channel, went to 1 million views off of raw content that never got edited.
Wow.
And it's driving leads and sales.
Interesting.
So just 30 minutes ago, another friend, he signed up for a $30,000 a year retainer with us because he saw this raw content. And he said, I want to work with these guys. And I saw the Stripe notification come in that we got paid. So it's not
It's
influencer,
amazing.
generating
Congratulations.
lots of views. And look, this is literally in the last 48 hours. If you look at the proof that I'm recording, so look, right? So I'm at CES. There's what 300,000 people here at CES, something crazy like that, right? And I'm recording
Yeah.
these things, but I'm not only just doing this, I'm also doing it with other people. So there's the CMO of Samsung. There's the CEOs and senior VPs of these other companies. And like this is Panasonic, right? Panasonic gave me a Lumix camera and like all their latest stuff. And then they tagged me on Instagram. So how much power is there where I'm saying, hey, check out Panasonic's new home kitchen, and Panasonic makes all kinds of stuff, and then they tag you, right? How much more power is that versus what you have to say?
Yeah.
Most people are relying on the content they produce. They don't realize, here's the big insight, that it's what other people say about you that carries way more weight. So you can see
That's a good point.
other accounts are tagging me on Instagram, for example, or Facebook. But when Panasonic and Samsung are tagging me, how much better, let me ask you, how much better is that than me talking about who I am? But if Panasonic is saying, what an honor to spend time with Dennis reviewing our products, right?
Yeah.
If we believe that's the case, then being a podcast host like what you're doing is actually the ultimate hack because it's borrowed credibility, right? You don't even have to be the expert because you interview people who are experts. I had Tommy Mello on my podcast. He's a
Yeah.
billionaire. But
It's
what's
funny.
more, yeah, go ahead.
I was talking to a prospective client this morning, and they were asking me, they were saying, well, because I was suggesting to them they have a very interesting product, right? And it's a niche product where they're going to have to educate the consumer on it.
Yeah.
And I said, you should really start looking at for your marketing mix, a podcast. And then they said to me, they're like, aren't podcasts kind of played out? Like, isn't everybody over those? And so I'm going to pose that question to you because it's funny that you're talking about borrowed credibility, gaining audience exposure, all of that stuff. And I figured those were the things that they needed to get their product out there in the world. So where in the world of social media, podcast, paid traffic, like, and every client, every customer is different, right? But
Yeah.
like, where do
Yep.
you hold the hierarchy?
Okay. So I'm going to give you an example because I always like to talk about proof, real things that I've done, not just like opinions. And then I'm going to explain why. So
Yeah.
we have one of the niche companies we work with. Full disclosure, I have a little bit of ownership in a lot of these companies. One of them does online quoting for HVAC companies. So you go to that HVAC company's website, you configure details about your home, and it says the price of your air conditioning unit will be $10,000 to $12,000 based on whatever it is, right? And this is started by my friend Marco 9 months ago, and he's a nobody, right? But he built some great software, and he wants HVAC companies, very, very niche, not consumers, but owners of HVAC companies to sign up for his tool, and he charges $350 a month. And so what I said was, let's do long form video of you and other people that are well-known HVAC companies. So his customer base, the client base that he's going for is HVAC business owners. So the idea of a podcast or Inception, the dream inside the dream, or playing chess, many steps ahead, is who are the people that the HVAC owners respect? Well, how about the HVAC guys that are
Yeah.
doing $200, $300 million a year? How about like a Tommy Mello? How about the people that speak at the big conferences? How about the manufacturers of the HVAC equipment, like Trane and Carrier? How about the other people like Service Titan that provide the software that HVAC companies use, right? So what we did was we started a YouTube channel, and the idea of a podcast is nothing more than an excuse to say, I want to spend some time, I want to sit down with you and ask you questions, and you're going to share your expertise and share your stories, right? Anyone will say yes to a podcast.
Right.
How do we know? Lance Bachman, Dan Antonelli, all these other people are saying yes. And then what we're doing is we're taking the podcast, which is nothing more than, having this great conversation with somebody else, and then we're putting it on YouTube and running ads against it. So I, for example, I don't know if you can see this, is, meet Alex, the HVAC, the person you'll talk to, she's the salesperson, right? And hey, Alex, what have you learned about working with HVAC owners? And I said, she's the most knowledgeable person. And the average completion time on these videos is 85 to 90%. People watch like this one. Your ads are wasted without HVAC. This has a 95% completion rate on a 40-second video. You never see that on ads.
40 seconds.
All these other ones, right? Here's Medley, another HVAC company. Here's Tim, a First Choice Mechanical, right? How are we getting 90% of people to watch a 1-minute clip out of a podcast? It's because when we put it out there, YouTube sees it's with the guy from First Choice Mechanical, it's with Tommy Mello, it's with Lance Bachman, it's with these other people. The algorithm then figures out, let's find, oh, Tommy Mello's in there. Let's show other people who are fans of Tommy Mello, which are largely HVAC owners, right? So this channel has gotten a few 100,000 views because I ran ads against it. But the source of it, the core ingredients, were several podcast episodes. And so the podcast episode is a way to get an interview. I have another friend, George Platichuk. He's one of our AI apprentices, one of these young adults in our program. He started a SaaS company for roofing, right? For roofing companies, a SaaS that does like AI, answering machine call center stuff, right? And he's a nobody. And I said, start a podcast. This was just 2 months ago. Start a podcast and get all the top guys in roofing. Anyone who's doing like more than $20 million a year. So the other roofing companies that are maybe at $2 million a year will say like, I want to be like this guy who's doing $30 million a year, right? He reached out to 8 of them. Remember, this is just a 21-year-old college kid, no business experience. How many of these 8 giants in the world of roofing said yes to being on George's podcast? He's a nobody, no podcast.
Yeah, I'd probably say all 8, right?
All 8. Yep.
All
And
eight.
then
Wow.
he flew out in the last 2 months. Even though he's a broke college kid, you can use Spirit Airlines and Frontier, to kind of make it work. He flew out to visit these guys and then interviewed these guys in the way that we specify. How do you do a podcast, right? He repurposed it YouTube. What happens when he tags someone who's got a $30 million roofing company on his roof.ai? I forgot the name of his thing. But on his podcast, he says, such an honor to have so-and-so who grew his company from $2 million to $30 million, his roofing company. When he tags them on LinkedIn, he tags them on YouTube, he tags them on Facebook. What do you think that roofing company owner then does?
I'll repost it.
Yeah.
Okay, now what's more effective marketing? What George, a 21-year-old kid, has to say about himself, or a $30 million a year roofing guy saying, it was so awesome being on George's podcast. We talked about this, this, and this. And, wow, mad respect to George. He's such a good guy. And that roofing company never talked about his software, never talked about George's software. Because George, when I told George, hey, you need to have your podcast, he's like, oh, I don't have the equipment. I don't have a podcast. I'm a nobody. None of these guys are going to say yes to me. Plus, my software isn't done yet. So shouldn't I wait until my SaaS software is done before I start my podcast? I'm like, no, because it's all about trust and expertise. And that's how people decide what services company or SaaS company they want to go with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious on the, since you're big on peering behind the curtain or looking under the hood, are most people engaging with the full podcast, or they're engaging with the small clips that you tease out with those big names?
Shorts.
So it's both. So think of it as like you're a Hollywood movie producer. You're going to make the movie. That's what you make first. And then from the movie, you're going to make a trailer, right? With all the scenes of explosions and the big action scenes that happen in the trailer. The trailer is like, 1 minute of all the best scenes to get people to watch a 2-hour movie, right? But you can't produce the trailer unless you made the movie first. So what you do is you record that podcast with that person. And then this is what nobody does except the pros. Then at the end of the podcast, then you talk about the podcast and how awesome it was. And that's your intro, because you already know what you talked about. You don't record the intro at the beginning. Just like anyone who's an author, who's a good author, knows you write the introduction of the book at the end. Once you've written the book, then you write the introduction, right? New authors don't know that. They think you just write the introduction. New podcasters think, oh, so good having you on the podcast, blah, blah, blah. And they wonder why no one watches their podcast. We take the clips and then we promote the podcast at the end. So Daniel and Rich, if you're on my podcast, I'd have a list of questions just like you prepared. And then at the end, I would say, Daniel, tell everyone why this podcast is worth their time to listen to. And then we run $1 a day ads against that clip. And then we target your audience. So anyone in the Built by Love audience, anyone who's watched your videos, which is 500,000, right? I would target all those people. I would target your names. I would target the Built by Love agency, because anyone who knows who you are, I'm going to target with content that shows you and me together. And they'll be like, I know Daniel and Rich. I'll probably stay and watch for the first few seconds. And then just like at Costco, where the little ladies give you the free little samples on the toothpick, if they like the sample, which is the clip, I buy so much stuff at Costco just because I don't want to disappoint those old ladies, because I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. Now you got to buy. Now you're committed, right? Now you have to buy the whole bag of sausages or whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Right? So if the clip is good and you find 3 or 4 clips of the podcast, and usually in a 45-minute podcast, there'll be like 5 or 6 clips, right? If the clip is good, then they're going to watch the podcast on YouTube or Instagram or Twitter. They'll come to the website. They'll do like whatever. And then the clip earns their attention for 40 minutes. I don't believe people are just going to, you put out a 45-minute podcast, unless you're Alex Hormozy, I don't think people are just going to come watch it unless they already trust you and know who you are.
Yeah.
Correct.
And that's why I always show experience, right? I'm constantly showing real experience, right out of here, real experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is what I always have loved about you. Which, speaking of that, if our listener has tuned in and they're wondering, okay, this guy is really giving a lot of value, What's his background? Who is he? I think now's a perfect opportunity to segue. So I'm not reading your introduction and missing any good things. I think it's appropriate for you to give us the introduction to the world. Who is Dennis Yu?
If you're a service-based business owner still trying to do your own marketing, stop. You're wasting hours tinkering with funnels, ads, and copy, and it's killing your momentum. At Built by Love Agency, we help successful entrepreneurs like you dominate your industry with award-winning done-for-you marketing that converts. We've been in business since 1998 and have worked with over 1,000 brands ranging from Fortune 500 companies to small businesses around the world. Our experience in what we do runs deep, and our industry awards, numerous accolades, and decades of happy clients shows what we do works. We're talking high-converting funnels, email campaigns that sell, and branding that makes you unforgettable. More leads, more sales, less stress. Here's your next step. Go to builtbylove.com and book your free strategy call right now. Together, we'll develop the right solution to increase your sales and drive business growth with a clear, actionable plan. If you're serious about scaling, don't wait. The best clients go to the brands that show up like pros. BuiltByLove.com. Book your free strategy call now. Your future business growth is waiting.
No one cares who I am, but I am probably the guy who's worked on the largest data systems in the world. I was there when American Airlines built Sabre, which is the world's largest data system of all the flights and hotels and whatnot. My mentor was the one who built that powered frequent flyer program. We invented frequent flyer programs, if you can believe that. And so I built AA.com back in the late 90s for American Airlines. And that got me into Yahoo, which you could argue was the next biggest data system ever in the world. Search engines. This is before Google. A lot of the people that I trained as a search engine engineer went on to go at Google, and some of them, they made $100 million when Google IPO'd, right? Which is, they said, Dennis, you should have come to Google. I'm like, I know. I was loyal at Yahoo. Then all this other data has opened up because of all the social media and retargeting and whatnot. And when the Facebook platform opened up in 2007, I was one of the first 5 developers there. Mark Zuckerberg hates me. You can see me argue with him on CNN Live in front of millions of people if you want to see how I work in terms of debate. Not bad for a Chinese math engineer guy being on live TV debating, right? English wasn't even my first language. I'm a math engineer, data programming kind of guy, right? So I've always been wherever the data is. And I find that most people are so subjective. They're so opinionated. They just believe that they're right. They don't use data, that it causes them blindness. And then we just come in and show people their data, and then they think it's genius. I'm like, we're just looking at your data. It's like, imagine the land of cavemen. Imagine there were 1 million cavemen, and we were the only ones with an MRI, right? The only ones who could do blood work, the only ones who could scan your body for x-rays. And then we showed these cavemen, hey, look, Daniel, it looks like here, looks like you got a broken bone. It looks like your vitamin C levels are low. It looks like, your blood pressure's high. And people are amazed. And so we've been teaching all these people how to use the x-ray or the MRI, and other people are doing witchcraft. And then people ask me, like, how do you have, how did you figure out where the tumor was? Because we used the data and we scanned it. How about that? Yeah, but this guy, I know he's a witch doctor. And he says, hilarious. If you drink the magic potion and spin around 3 times and go look at the sky, that your tumor will be healed. I mean, that may or may not work, but I tend to believe that, scanning for your data to figure out where your lymphocyte count is low and where, your hemoglobin counts are out of whack, that probably might be a better measure of what's going on,
But is the witch doctor driving a Lamborghini though? that's usually the thing that allows people to follow them.
Yeah.
You've kind of built yourself besides obviously everywhere I go, you're always speaking everywhere I am.
Yeah.
You've been arguably one of the most well-known influencers in the digital marketing world for at least the last decade. And you've also been known for exposing fraud or fraudulent things. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that? Like, what was the catalyst that got you doing that? Because I've seen posts on LinkedIn with a tremendous amount of feedback and comments where you have called out agencies, organizations, consultants, freelancers, and so forth
Yeah.
for their methods of practice of whether it's marketing or something else.
Yeah.
What was the thing that inspired you to start doing that?
So we're not trying to call anyone out. Think of it, we're the scale, right? We want people, whether you're obese, whether you're an Olympic athlete, we want you to step on the scale. And if it says, Rich, let's say, Rich, you're not obese, but let's say you stepped on the scale and it said 650 pounds, and you're 5'5", and you're trying to tell me how fit and healthy you are. And the scale says 650 pounds. And I'm like, well, you know, you're probably obese, your blood pressure's high, your percent body fat is 48%. You are, unfortunately, I know it's embarrassing, but you're unfortunately obese. Okay. No, I'm not. How dare you say that? I take the best supplements and I eat a keto diet, and, I have the best coaches and I paid a lot of money. I wear the best exercise clothing. Like, how dare you call me obese? You're just a scammer. I'm like, why are you attacking the scale? The scale the scale is just revealing numbers. So 5 days ago, this friend of mine, Donovan Brown, who's an HVAC contractor in Houston, Texas, he says, I've been paying these guys $20,000, $25,000 for SEO. And frankly, I'm just an HVAC contractor. I don't notice the phone ringing. And they send me these reports that all seem to show that SEO or whatever it is doing really well. Can you just take a look? So I took a look for free. I don't know who this guy is, right? I mean, I know him through like we have a lot of friends in HVAC. So, we all know each other kind of, right? And so I
Sure.
took a look at his data, and
Yeah.
the first 20 seconds, I could see he had no evidence of SEO, no evidence of links, no evidence of rankings, no evidence of the phone ringing, just factual data, inarguable stats, not an opinion, not like, oh, I think the red painting is more beautiful than the blue painting. It's facts, numbers. Anyone using any SEO tools, using Google Analytics, using whatever, you can't argue the numbers. That's why I love math, right? It's not subjective. It's the math. If the answer to the
Mhm.
equation is 5 and I get it right, you have to give me credit, right? It's not like how well I talk or the politics. Like, it's fact. So I did the audit. It took me a few seconds. It was an eye opener for him. I've done thousands of these. They're recorded on YouTube and whatnot. And his mind was blown. He said, but I've been paying this guy all this money and he claims whatever. I'm like, who's this guy? So I didn't even know who the agency was. I don't even care. I have no vendetta. And he said, well, it's this guy Daniel
Mhm.
of a company called Red Palm. And so I look up Red Palm. I see they rank on nothing. And this guy can't even rank on his own name, but he claims to do SEO. And then I watch his videos and he says, like, we're no fluff. We don't lie to people and we don't cheat people. And if we ever have a problem, if clients are ever unhappy, we never run and hide, and we always address the issue. And I'm like, okay. So I said, Donovan, send me some of the emails because, they're claiming success. I'm happy to look at whatever reports they have claiming that they've delivered success over the last 9 months or something, right? And so there was nothing to show. So I replied to that guy and I said, I know your claim is no fluff, but the data is the data. And then he replied back saying, how dare you try to, defame us? And I know who you are. You're a scammer. And, we're not going to be intimidated by you. And how dare you try to, okay, well, let me just ask you 2 questions. A, what have you actually done? Don't send me the auto-generated reports that the tool does, right? That puts your agency's name, Red Palm, on it or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. Tell me what you actually did. And don't tell me it's proprietary and you can't tell me what it is. What did you do for the $25,000 that Donovan paid you? That's one question. Number 2, if you can answer that question, show Donovan how those efforts resulted in more phone calls, made the phone ring for his HVAC company. Hopefully, that should be an innocuous, very reasonable question to ask, right? And Donovan's in complete agreement. And this guy instead changes the subject. Well, I don't have to provide anything to you. And, we don't work for you. And our methods are proprietary. And we're a really good company. And, you're a scammer. And, okay, well, I was just asking 2 questions. Show me what you did. And Donovan's asking the same question. I mean, you've had 9 months. Oh, but Google's algorithm changes all the time and all this and that. Like, I asked 2 questions. What have you done? Show me how those actions resulted in the phone ringing. And the beauty is, like, my buddy Eric Thomas, He runs an agency that does SEO and whatever and all that. There's a ton of them. And when his clients come for an audit, usually we say like, wow, it looks good, right? Data checks out, healthy, right? And then every now and then Eric will send me a note saying, phew, I'm so glad. Like, I'm afraid, going against your audit. Like, I always want to make sure we pass your audit, right? So we're not calling anyone out because we're looking at it without even knowing who the agency is, right? Imagine we run a clinic where we have an emergency room. It's called the Daniel Rich and Dennis Emergency Clinic. And these patients come in and they're bleeding to death. They have gunshot wounds. They broke a bone skiing. They have the flu. I don't know, whatever. They're sick, okay? All these patients are coming into our emergency room and we're scanning them. We're doing our very best to help them not die, right? Trying to rehabilitate them, doing triage. Imagine that's what happens in an emergency room. And we don't care who the previous doctor was. We don't care who their friend was that tried to give them advice on health. We're here to save their lives, right? We're not here to call out these other doctors. We're here to take care of the patients. And if they don't want to be data driven, if they don't want to document what they're doing, if they don't want to be held accountable, it's so funny because when you look, there's only a handful, a couple dozen people that attack me. These are all failed marketers. But then you look at the companies that we work with, like the Samsungs and Tommy Mello and Nike and Starbucks and Quiznos, Adidas. Look at all the companies that work with us over the last 30 years. I mean, even the FTC, even the federal government has asked us for help in digital marketing. Who has more trust, right? These fly-by-night people that are, like Rich, you said, driving Lamborghinis, or the people who actually publish what they do, have a track record, believe in long-term relationships, show exactly how they do everything. We publish all our SOPs, they're out there. Some of them are hundreds of pages. They're all out there for anybody to be able to use. Hundreds, thousands of audits are out there. Anyone can watch them. Anyone can read them. And if we have any of the facts, and this is what I told this Daniel guy of Red Palm, I said, I published an audit. I ran the data through Ahrefs and these other tools. If any of the data we have is wrong, please let us know and we can fix it, right? If any of the numbers are incorrect, if any of the facts are incorrect, please let us know and we will fix it. We do not want to publish anything that's factually incorrect. And he says, well, but if I send you a report, will you take down your analysis? I'm not promising to take anything down unless it's incorrect, right? Now, if it embarrasses you because the numbers are bad or because whatever, like that is what it is. Try to make it right. Either refund the client, make the work right. If you fix it, then we'll update the audit saying this is what the current results are. And isn't that fair? We didn't get paid a dime by Donovan, and then this Red Palm agency, they're not paying us a dime. We're not, we're not charging them to teach them SEO, but trying to teach these guys SEO or website stuff or PPC is not going to work because these guys are already representing themselves as world class when they're broken on the most basic fundamentals. So why would we spend time trying to convince them at our expense that they're not following the fundamentals of what Google teaches?
Yeah. Speaking of fundamentals, you have a very large inventory or list of courses that you offer.
Yeah.
Ranging from everything from like personal branding to building a social media following to running an agency to looking at ads, reports. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive, the amount of courses you offer. Do you think that there's a few courses that every business owner should either take themselves or have their team members take?
Yeah. I would first start with personal branding because personal branding is what other people will say about you. It's not what you have to say. It's not your Lamborghinis. It's your reputation. And anyone who's a service-based business, there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people that seemingly do the same thing. So the thing that differentiates you is your reputation and what your customers have to say about you. So I'd start with personal branding. Number two, I'd start with $1 a day. $1 a day is once you've collected those ingredients, you can then redistribute that on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn. And you could spend $1 a day for each piece of content for a week. So you spend $7 promoting it and seeing whether at least 10% of people engage with the content. If it hits that benchmark, then you might put $2 a day. You might extend it to 30 days. And we've spent $1 billion of other people's money using this technique to find winners. And we're letting the algorithm use the data to find the winners that convert better, that attract attention, that drive leads, that, do all these kinds of things. And then that's how you build momentum. Number three, if those first two things are true and you've got a lot of data and you got a lot of ads that are running and you've got a lot of pieces of content, a lot of funnels, a lot of landing pages, a lot of email sequences, a lot of things, then you want to have digital plumbing in place.
Yeah.
Digital plumbing is all the tracking. Most people say that they have good analytics, but they can't even tell you where their leads came from, right? So digital plumbing in our definition is Google Tag Manager first, which is the universal pixel that controls all the pixels, the Google pixel, the Facebook pixel, the UTM parameters, all the tags, all the first-party data that gets around the whole Chrome third-party data elimination, iOS 14, Apple data issue. So that way, all conversion data is owned by you. Any work or campaigns that you do with agencies or paying to work with other creators, you own all the data. You own all the ad accounts. You own the analytics. You own everything that ties, and you have to own all your stuff. I don't care how much you trust these other people. You have to own all your stuff. If you own all the stuff, you have inventory on who has access to what, so you never lose control of one of your Meta accounts or a Facebook page or your LinkedIn, whatever, or who's got the website or who's responsible for the license on this plugin on WordPress. You have everything organized. You can analyze it, and now you can optimize your marketing efforts by where the ROI is coming from, instead of like, well, I like this guy or I like that guy. I have no idea, what's working or not. So I'll just keep paying what I'm paying. So then you have accountability. But I feel those three steps are the logical order. Big companies, maybe like if you're over 100 million, they like to start with digital plumbing because they have lots of pieces and lots of things to coordinate and they can't figure out what's winning or not. If you're not a big company, I would invest in generating that high trust content, like podcast content, then making sure it's being seen, because most people never get it seen. Your content's being seen. I can see you're boosting some of the content. You can clearly tell. And then number three, we can start to optimize. But it has to be the content. It has to be amplified so people can see it. So the algorithm is choosing who. The algorithms get smarter and smarter. And then three, you can optimize. And all the courses are free.
I have a crazy question for you. And this was not in our list of questions, but it's something that has been driving me crazy. I'm not going to mention names, but I have seen this more and more and more in the advertising world, which personally, and you can tell me what your perspective is, because I respect you, it drives me insane. We had a client that we worked with for 4 years on retainer. It's a $50 million a year business. They had this big venture-backed marketing agency, and they were running all of their ads, giving them all of their reports, showing all of their SEO, and this is all the traffic. They would not allow the client to use their own web forms on their website. They had to use the other agencies. And then when we started peeling back the layers, because I was saying, these numbers are not adding up. They're not adding up.
Yeah.
And they were very defensive. And the other agency was like, well, we are a very large agency, blah, blah, blah. And they are very, very large. We're talking over 100 employees.
Sure.
And when we started trying to peel back the layers, then what we found is they were running all of the ads and everything in the agency's Facebook accounts and the agencies.
Yeah.
I said to the client, I said, this is outright fraud. You own nothing. You are renting. Yeah. I'm like, you are renting your own IP, your own audience.
Yeah. So like the Facebook ad accounts, it's called Meta and all that. Do you know who was the guy who told Facebook that you need to create the idea of the business manager and business center? It was me.
Was that you?
It was me I told Jan Fugner, I told the other guys who were in charge of the API at Facebook Engineering. This is like 12 years ago. It used to be that there were just ad accounts, there were Facebook pages, and their Facebook profiles. And the allocation of who has access to what was a real just shit show. And so
all over the place. Yeah.
I told them, because they asked me, like, what do we do about all this? Because now, like, who has access, who has control? I said, well, Google already solved this problem for you 22 years ago. They created the My Client Center, the MCC, which allows the owner of the business to allocate who has what level of access to the ad accounts, to the different pages, to like whatever it is, right? Apps, for example. And so Facebook created that at my recommendation. Then to the example that you had where this big agency says, oh, well, we're doing it on our landing pages and it's run through our ad account. Guess what? If the agency created the ad account and it's inside the agency's business center, which it is, it cannot be transferred.
Yeah.
You can copy the data out, you can do an export, but the most valuable piece is the performance data and the retargeting pixels. The retargeting pixel and the
Yeah.
custom audiences live with the ad account. They are not transferable. So when that client, if they ever decide that they want to take it in-house or they want to switch agencies, they cannot leverage that data. So agencies will say, oh, well, we would love to share, but we can't do that because, we have many clients inside our business center or our MCC. Well, if they're intelligent, they know that when they created that account in the beginning, that they were locking the client in to where the client couldn't leave. If they're dumb and they're ignorant, then they don't realize that that's the case. Well, they shouldn't be touching ad accounts in the first place. So either they're malicious or they're ignorant. Which one?
Yeah.
Right?
I said to the client, I said, what you don't understand is they own everything. All of your most precious information of getting customers,
Yeah.
they outright own it. And
Yeah.
if you ever leave them, guess what? They can go to your competitor and they have the audience, they have the data, they have the reputation, they have everything. They can turn that on and you can do nothing about it. You have to start from zero all over again, which is insanity.
Yeah. You guys know the Purple Mattress Company?
Yeah.
Yes.
We spent $100 million on Facebook ads for them. And the thing that made them popular, if you remember, was the Goldilocks commercial where they drop the egg on the bed and you jump up and down and the mattress was so stable that the egg wouldn't break. And the agency that created the awesome creative is the Harmon Brothers, right? The Harmon Brothers have done like the Squatty Potty and all these viral videos, right? Harmon Brothers, amazing. But the way the Harmon Brothers decided to monetize was they found that, you know what? Charging $100,000 to come up with a creative campaign is a good one-off, but it doesn't drive residual income. So we'll say all advertising, if you're going to take the asset that we create, all advertising has to be done under our account and we charge a 20% kind of royalty on that. So, that would be another, if they spent $100 million, they get another $20 million in royalty. So that's worth way more than the $100,000 to make the commercial, right? And so they were running ads, but they didn't do a very good job. They did grant us analytics access so we could analyze the ads that they were running. They basically just boosted the post and didn't do any optimization and ran through, $30, $40, $50 million. So then we created another ad account and asked Facebook, is this going to make sense? So we were running ads for Purple, competing against the Facebook ads that the Harmon Brothers had created. And then because we were both running ads, the quality score of the ads went down to 1 out of 10, the lowest possible.
What if the real secret to explosive business growth wasn't found in tactics, trends, or tech, but in something far more primal, something every human being craves? Love. Real, genuine, emotional connection. You've tried the funnels, you've chased the hacks, you've burned money on ads that promised magic but delivered mediocrity. It's not your fault. You've been sold noise when what your marketing needs is music. This book changes everything. Rooted in behavioral science and built on the same relationship-based marketing formulas used by billion-dollar brands, this time-tested framework doesn't just teach you how to market, it transforms the way you see your customers. You'll learn how to turn cold traffic into loyal fans, how to spark love at first scroll, and how to build an unshakable bond that makes your brand unforgettable. Because in a world drowning in gimmicks, authenticity is your unfair advantage. This isn't theory. It's the engine behind some of the fastest growing businesses in the world. And it's helped smart entrepreneurs like you build tribes, not just audiences. Agencies use it, CMOs swear by it, buyers can't put it down. It's won multiple awards, and it's climbing the charts because real marketing that connects always wins. So stop chasing attention, start building love, and watch your business take off. Grab your copy now at Target.com, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble retail stores, or anywhere quality books are sold. Your future customers are waiting for love. It's time to give it to them. Get your copy of Marketing Built by Love today.
I was gonna say that's pretty brave. That's brave of you, Dennis.
And there was nothing that we could do, even though in Facebook's terms of service, it clearly says, or you could ask ChatGPT if you don't believe me, that whoever is the underlying client owns the ad data and therefore should have full access to it. And the reason Facebook says that is because Google actually came up with this. And 20 years ago, I was there when this all happened. There were a lot of agencies that were marking up that Google ad spend with an opaque markup where Google PPC is becoming so expensive.
Mhm.
Not really. You were
Yeah.
charging the client 20 grand a month and you spent only 3 grand on the ads and 17,000 with your markup, and now you're blaming Google, but the client doesn't know that you marked it up.
Mhm.
They didn't know you marked up the 3 grand to 20 grand, right? Because they didn't have access to the ads account, right?
Correct.
Right.
So Google 20 years
Yeah.
ago saw this happening. So they had to create a terms of service saying, hey, you can't do that. Or you can, I guess, but you have to, if the client asks, you have to give them access to the data, right? But most agencies didn't have to do that because the client wasn't smart enough to know. So along comes Facebook, faces the same issue. Every time Facebook's had this issue, they ask me, and then I tell them, well, this problem's already been solved by Google. Here's the answer. Update your terms of service saying clients get access to their data, right? And so Facebook's tried to do that, but like I showed you in the Purple example, because Purple was one of these launch partners with Facebook in the marketplace, they can get away with stuff. Because I went to Facebook and I said, so the Harmon brothers are holding us hostage for Purple. Purple is obviously the underlying brand. They've, raised a ton of VC money. They're trying to go public. They're in Costco now, all this. And this is hurting our ability to grow because the ad account's getting burnt down because of a one quality score because it's being mismanaged. So even if we used a new asset in a new ad account, which is what Facebook told us to do, it doesn't matter because even though we're optimizing in our ad account, because that asset's already been burnt out, because quality score is tied to the asset, not tied to the ad account, right? There's nothing we
Right.
can do.
Right.
And I said, but according to your terms of service, the agency needs to give us control. But they wouldn't do it because, like, if you're BMW or if you're WPP, you're $1 billion ad agency, you can break the terms of service and not get busted.
Yeah.
So there is an advantage to being a big agency.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, you've talked about, and Mark, tell me if I'm wrong, but you've mentioned that attribution is overrated. At least when I was doing my homework
Yeah.
on things that you've said. Can you kind of explain that? Because I know that you're very much a data-driven person, and attribution, especially with you're talking about Google Console, Google
Yeah.
Tag Manager,
Yeah.
like all of that is arguably attribution. So clarify probably for me, and then what's important, like what should entrepreneurs really be looking at?
So this concept of attribution seems to make sense on the surface, but is actually a lot of false precision. So attribution is, where did that lead come from? Well, if someone saw a TV ad and then later they Googled your name and then they clicked on an offer through some other partner, there are multiple touches along the way that all contributed towards someone eventually making a buy decision. And you could even argue that whoever generated the lead, it could have been multiple sources. It could have been, you did all this, maybe you're here at CES and you're exhibiting, but then later someone came in on a PPC ad. So you have to give partial credit to each of these things. That's what the game of attribution has been the last 15 years, which is how do you give credit when there are multiple channels or sources or people or affiliates involved, right? And that makes sense. And there's something to be said about first click and average click and like all the average different weighted forms of attribution. But something has happened in the last 5 years to basically throw that all out the window. And that is this. So let's say, Daniel, if you and I were at Starbucks and you asked for a recommendation, because we were talking about Göbekli Tepe and what are some of the best places to visit when you're in Turkey looking at the ancient sites, and what are the best hotels to stay at, because they don't trust the reviews. The reviews are all game. You can't really tell which hotels are legit, right? Because there's so much fakery going on. And I make a recommendation when we're at Starbucks. And then later that afternoon, you go to Travelocity or American Airlines or Expedia or whatever, and you book those hotels based on my recommendation at Starbucks. Can any of those data-driven attribution systems give credit to who actually gave you the recommendation? No, it cannot, because attribution does not account for word of mouth. It does not account for credibility. Attribution only accounts for things that occur in that user's click stream. So if that user, that same user clicked on a Facebook ad, that user visited your website, that user, based on the cookie ID, then went to Twitter, and saw a tweet about whatever, it only occurs in that user's clickstream. Even if you have Google Tag Manager and the Universal Pixel and you tie all of the browser cookies and first-party cookies together, even then, that's only that user's data. So the more important trust and reputation is, the more B2B it is, the more touches there are, the less attribution actually is effective, because you can see everything that happened for that one user. But if that user was influenced by something else that isn't available in their browser clickstream, then what?
Yeah.
I love that you're saying that. We used to have a client about a year ago, and he did a bunch of marketing for a specific business type, right? I won't get into specifics. And so we were doing the marketing for him, in which he was then implementing to all these other businesses. And I started saying to him, if you're an expert, you're a wealth of knowledge, we need to start doing industry webinars, invite all these people to show up, and then that's how you're going to convert. Of course, we have follow-up emails based off, did you register? Did you register in 10? Did you blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And the attendance rate and the conversion rates were phenomenal, because when he got on camera and just did his thing, I mean, he was just dropping knowledge bombs, just dropping wisdom everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And then it's funny, it got to attribution, and we use HubSpot, and we're using HubSpot for him, and obviously all the other things that plug into HubSpot.
Sure.
And he kept saying, he goes, none of this is accounted to you or your agency. And I was saying, well, why is that? Let's discuss it. Let's have a conversation. Let's look at the data. Let's have a conversation. And he goes, all of these people, we already had gotten them like a year before. And I said, you're right. However, they did not pay you money then. So all of your efforts and everything you did up until the point that we drove the webinar, they registered, then they did your sales consultant, and they signed up with you, was this. So we're not talking about the attribution of like the first click, where did they come from? We're talking about what actually moved the needle.
Yeah.
And it was a very interesting conversation. In the end, we respectfully parted ways, and we're still friends with them and all that stuff. But he was like, I disagree. And I was like, well, if everybody did business that way, where just get as much leads as possible and not look at actually how those leads are moving through the click stream and what's actually moving, then you'd pretty much, for the most part, be out of business. Unless you were a one-trick pony and you were the only one that had the cure to cancer or whatever, everyone would be forced to you. But other than that,
So attribution, if you rely heavily, I love attribution, but you can over rely on certain things. If you do that, you'll end up accidentally putting all the effort on paid efforts that are the bottom of the funnel, because that is direct attribution on lead gen. And so just because it's a conduit, meaning someone comes through a landing page, someone comes through a call funnel, book a 15-minute discovery call or whatever, just because it comes through a conduit doesn't create causality. And this is something that the data team at Facebook and us, we did some research on. We found that there was content, it could be webinars and podcasts or whatever it is, that actually influenced someone's decision-making behavior. But that was different than whether someone happened to click on something, right? Just because someone clicks on something doesn't mean that you've actually change their opinion. And that's something that you're not going to get out of attribution. That's something that's based on measuring authority and credibility and trust and reputation and things that you can't pixel someone's credibility. Therefore, there's no attribution.
100%. I could spend all day talking to you about this, and you for sure need to come back on. But before we run out of time for you, you had mentioned earlier something that piqued Rich's interest and my interest. And I know we've talked about it offline. We're fascinated by history, and you just came back from a trip of a lifetime. You mentioned Göbekli Tepe. Can you talk to us about that? I know it's not marketing or attribution or anything like that, but you came back from a trip of a lifetime. So can you share a little bit? Like, can we just be a witness to what you experienced?
I believe that people who have an active, curious mind apply that everywhere, not just in data attribution like we talked about here, but in wondering why certain things are the case. I saw Machu Picchu 30 years ago, megaliths. They were at the top of a mountain, 9,000 feet high, that there's no way these ancient Incas could have built this thing. The same stonework with the handbags, and the way that these geometric blocks fit together so perfect you can't even put a razor blade in between them. Even modern machinery doesn't even know how to lift these 100-ton blocks, right? The same blocks were at the pyramids. The same blocks were in parts of Iran and modern day Syria. And if you trace that all the way back, you will find the beginnings of modern civilization in Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, 12,800 years ago, where there was a massive climate change. Some people say it was the comet that wiped out the dinosaurs. It could have also tied to in the Bible, they call it the gap theory, Lucifer's rebellion between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, which is to say, in the beginning, the earth was formless and void. Well, formless and void, God never creates anything that is void. Everything God creates initially is perfect. So it had to have been destroyed. There had to have been a great cataclysm. That great cataclysm, I think, occurred back then. Göbekli Tepe is in the Fertile Crescent, which is in between the Tigris and Euphrates area, the Mesopotamia, where Adam and Eve in the Bible and that whole area is. Mount Ararat is 80 miles away from Göbekli Tepe. And Mount Ararat, they recently found Noah's Ark. Through ground penetrating radar, through scanning, they found the steel beams that were evenly spaced apart. It fit dimensions. The Bible's very clear. If you look in the Pentateuch describing the dimensions of the Bible as Moses built them, they found evidence of yaks and mammoths and they're like, what the heck is a woolly mammoth doing up at the top of a mountain that has snow in it, and its teeth, that the teeth of the molars have tropical vegetation in them? How is that possible? That would probably point to evidence of a global flood, right? And so you see a lot of things that, the majority of my friends are Christian. We have a lot of people of all different sorts of faiths. And, I believe,
Sure.
I believe in faith. I believe, the Bible told me, the mustard seed, and you need to have some faith. But I also believe in science and reason, and I don't believe it's one or the other. And so I've come to this thing. I don't think I'm just trying to force the square peg into the round hole, but I have seen with my own eyes in the last couple of years, like going to Jerusalem on the east side of the Dead Sea, you find the actual remains of Sodom and Gomorrah. Remember in the Bible, it talks about how God rained down sulfur balls and destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. And as Lot's wife looked back, she got turned into a pillar of salt and all that. There are millions of sulfur balls, like tennis-sized sulfur balls. You can go and light them on fire. They are not man-made. They are not just created off the ground. They had to have fallen from the sky. If you look at them, the geologists and archaeologists can't explain it. There are a bunch of building structures that are there. If you go there, it couldn't be fake because it's millions of these, and it's covering multiple square miles. There is evidence of a town that was there.
Yeah.
And you see these things that were discovered just in the last 10 or 15 years, just in the last month. There were new things that were discovered in that Tas Tepler area where Göbekli Tepe is. That includes Karahan Tepe. Karahan Tepe is even older potentially than Göbekli Tepe. And they found a 7.5-foot tall carved statue, which no one has ever seen. No one ever thought this was even possible, weighing multiple tons, holding its own penis, this kind of thing. And it reframes how we think about human civilization. And if anything, it's actually confirming what we thought. How is this possible in the Bible? I believe the Bible is a history book. And if you're open-minded to it, if you're open-minded to things that could be true or not true, then you have a strong faith. And if things are proved to be not true, then you have to reject the Bible. But it stood the test of time, and archaeology continues to uncover new biblical truths. And I find that amazing.
Luciferian conspiracy here got booted, which was unfortunate because I'd gotten thrown off. The evidence of the devil right there, I think, knocking me off the connection. But I lost it at the sulfur balls, but everything was incredible what you'd laid out there. And I don't know where you let off there, Dennis, but I do agree. I think science really should, now that we have these greater tools to analyze these things, I think it really should enhance the narrative and provide context and proof of the narrative, not in any way conflict against it.
Yeah, and I'm one of those trust but verify sorts of people, right? Go see it with your own eyes. Don't just take someone's word for it. So if you look on my phone, I literally have thousands of pictures and videos from being in Turkey, right? Here in Istanbul. This is where the this is one of the ancient seven wonders of the world. There's only two left: the Great Pyramids, and the second was a temple of or what's her Aphrodite. That's a single column that's left. But you can see all of these ancient ruins I saw with my own eyes. I was there. I didn't take someone's word for it. Some of these I even touched. I don't think you're supposed to
Yeah.
touch the T pillars, but they're still excavating, so I was able to touch some of them, right? You can see we were there, right? We were
Yeah.
there. We did it, right? Look at these ancient Roman theaters. Like, we visited the seven cities in Revelation, Ephesus, and all
Wow.
look at these crazy stone columns that are thousands. These amphitheaters, right? Thousands of years old. Incredible. Always be curious. I'm curious about attribution. I'm curious about these AI tools. I'm curious about history. For me, it's the same curiosity, even though technically it's a different topic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a love of learning, a love of expansion. And I think with that, what would you say, because obviously this is the Built by Love podcast, and we've been talking a lot about our passion, love, and having integrity. What's the attribute of love that drives your mission today forward?
I want to be remembered as someone who was there when people needed them at their moment. Everyone hits the time where something happens, right? Life is unpredictable. And I'm very grateful that other people have entrusted me with their business or with their health when they've been burned before, and we can help them out and I can point them in the right direction. I can give them someone that I've trusted to be able to make their website load faster for $200 to help them rank in the maps. I've helped people with health because I'm well connected among the top doctors and stem cells, and like I'm very well connected there. So I love making referrals to people like how did you get a hold of Dr. Philip Ovadia? Like he's like well, he and I text all the time, right? And if I can make these connections and help other people, then that's a life worth living. And other people have done that for me. My first mentor who got me started, nothing that I've ever had has been because of my efforts or because of me being a genius or whatever. It's always been because someone else has opened the door. And I had a mentor over 30 years ago who was the CEO of American Airlines. And he did so many incredible things for me that I could never pay back. He's not on this planet anymore, but I've always thought, how do I replicate what was poured into me? And that's what I've done for a lot of young adults. And I feel like I don't have any kids, but these kids kind of live on. I sort of live on through seeing them win, like the soccer dad that sees my kids score goals. And that's what's meaningful for me. 20 years ago, I did the whole private jets and mansion and boats and luxury. Like I did all of that, right? I got that out of my system because I made millions of dollars because of the Yahoo stock when, all that. And I was just very lucky then. But I'm not saying like, oh, money's not worth anything or whatever. Yeah, I splurged and did that 20 some years ago because I wanted to see for myself and touch the wet paint, even though everyone told me, oh, work on, health is wealth and don't chase the money. But I had to buy the fancy car. I had to buy the mansion. I had to do that for myself to see, right? And then I discovered, you know what? You're right. The sports car and the mansion, it gets old after a month or two. Then it starts to own you. Then all of these, then you're like, yeah, all these old people, they were right. But I needed to find out for myself. And then we realize what matters is your reputation, the mark that you leave, the impact that you make on other people, how they think about you. And thus, while the things on the balance sheet are very important, the best things in life are free. Think about that. But the second best things are very expensive, right? But the best things in life are free. So I think of, the idea of built by love. That assumes that you care about people. There's a certain level of integrity. And that drives you deeper than doing just what's technically in the contract. Because you care about, if one of these clients were to come see you at dinner, you're in a restaurant and they happen to see you and they walk by with their family. You want them to say, that's Daniel. I like Daniel. He's always been there for me. Things have been up and down because of whatever, but I respect Daniel. He's always been there for me. Versus like, that Daniel guy ripped me off, right? I would hate to be at dinner and you walk by and like, that Dennis guy, he was that one. I remember he ripped me off. I would not be able to live with that. And that's what motivates me. There's so many people that depend upon me for their livelihood. They've trusted their careers with me. They've trusted marketing decisions with me. And I don't take that lightly. I mean, even though I'm 51 and technically you could say I'm successful, I'm still here learning. I'm at CES today because I'm like paranoid about missing out about AI and because I never want to give a bad recommendation. I don't want to be the ignorant one who, Rich, to your point, has the Lamborghini and is out there, pretending and proclaiming and outselling just because I know more than the other people. Therefore, I can trick them. I never want to be that guy, even though I know that works. I'll take one example. Last year, I was the headliner at Affiliate World, which is the world's largest affiliate conference. And we were in Dubai. And I was giving the opening keynote. And I invited Dan Henry on the stage. He's arguably the biggest guy in the world of affiliate marketing. And he just happened to be in town because he bought a new condo. And I said, Dan, come on in. I know that, they didn't invite you or whatever, but come on in and join because, I have the stage. And he came on and we made a whole bunch of videos together. And later that afternoon, we rented a $500,000 car, this Rolls Royce that was a convertible. We went to the Meydan Bridge, which is the iconic place that all the influencers go and film. And we made a whole bunch of spoof videos making fun of influencers. So he'd be driving the car real slow. We hired a couple professional videographers and he said, hey, do you want to be a millionaire? Well, buy my course because you can see with my car that clearly I'm very successful and you're going to trust everything I have to say and you're going to click on that link below because that's what works with influencer marketing. See you on the other side, right?
Yeah.
And so we were just mocking these influencers, mocking their techniques by renting the $500,000 car and doing all the influencer posing and saying, but really, isn't trust and reputation, isn't proof, isn't your data more important? Isn't it more important to hear from your peers and their results than hearing from the guy? If somebody claims to be such a good influencer and so knowledgeable about Facebook ads or whatever, why don't you hear from his clients more? Why don't you hear from the practitioners? If I'm a cook and I have a secret recipe, well, first off, it shouldn't be a secret. I should publish it. If my recipe's any good, then all these other people will say, I followed Dennis's recipe and I have to make chocolate cake and it works and it's delicious. I don't need to market my chocolate cake. I don't need to market Mrs. Fields. I don't need to market Apple, right? Apple doesn't need to run ads on their iPhone because people love the orange iPhone. That's the marketing. It's the proof, right?
Absolutely. It's funny. So Rich and I were talking, this was like a couple months ago, we were talking about brainstorming for videos. And one of them, I won't go too far off topic, was I was like, look, I'm going to be in front of a Ferrari and I'm going to start off like, does your business need to grow? Blah, 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 blah. Well, listen to me. And then off camera was going to be someone like, excuse me, sir, can you get off the car? Or were you looking to test drive it? I was like, oh, sorry. And it was going to be one of those spoof videos of all the influencers that are always like, showing their fancy cars that they either don't own, they rent it, or they're leasing. They don't outright own. But Dennis, thank you for your time, first of all. What question, do we miss anything? Is there any questions we should have asked you that we didn't during our time together today?
I think all the questions on what's the most important thing that service business owners are missing, I think that's a whole episode by itself because there's so many misconceptions. There's so many things that you don't know that you don't know. And a smart business owner realizes there's things they know that they don't know. And you can certainly easily chase those down with ChatGPT or whatever. But being able to attack your blind spots and recognize where your blind spots are, how do you find them? How do you surround yourself with the right people? How do you know who to trust?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Where can people find you online? And I know you mentioned service-based businesses, but if someone wants to do a consult with you, if someone wants to take a course from you, like where do they go? Where do they find you?
Well, they go to Google, and then what you do is you type in my name. And if you type in my name, you'll see a knowledge panel pop up. And then I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, email, whatever it is. I'm on every single channel. And it is actually me that replies. It might take me a few days because, whatever. But I want to see people win. And everything that we know how to do, we publish. And feel free to talk to any of the people that are in my network. We're all about putting the information out there for free. We charge for services and charge for time, but we think that information and all that should be free and shouldn't be a secret. The more people we have who embrace that, who are data driven, the more it's going to flush out all the bad players in the swamp.
Yeah.
Agree to that. Dennis, thank you so much. We're going to definitely have to have you on again.
Daniel and Rich, let's do it in person. It's way better.
Yeah. Palos Verdes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks again, Dennis. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yeah,
Thank you, gentlemen.
Insights.
Such an honor.
Thank you. Bye-bye.